Our symposium will include three papers. The first paper will be by Sahar Abdel Amir, and the second will be by Assistant Professor Dr. Mithal, and the third one will be by lecturer Dr. Ghussoon Mehdi. The discussion of the themes has been organized as follows. There will be 3-minute presentations dealing with various angles on the respective themes, followed by 5 minutes of questions, and from the floor, of course. For each presentation, there will be time for a longer joint discussion after the sessions, if there is need. I look forward to hearing all these interesting presentations, and I hope you all contribute your views and good ideas to the subsequent discussions. I will have the pleasure of guiding through the discussion of the three themes in collaboration and with the assistance of Dr. Wiam. I now would like to ask Assistant Professor Sahar Abdel Amir to join us to the stage. She will talk about graphemic emblems in selected poems by John Hollander. Okay. You're most welcome. CPS. English. Well, English will be more often. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I ask Dr. Wiam to inform us or brief us about the CV of Dr. Sahar's. Okay, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Assistant Professor Sahar Abdel Amir Haraj. She has got her BA degree from the University of Al-Qadisiyah, College of Education, in 1998, and also she has got her MA degree from the University of Baghdad, College of Education, Ibn Rushd, and she is a specialist in modern poetry. In 2001, she has got her MA. She is now a staff member in the Department of English, College of Education, University of Al-Qadisiyah. She actually has got many certificates from different universities and colleges. She also has translated 2 books. She has a translated one, which is entitled "The King of Egypt is the King of Dreams," for the writer Gwendolyn Mikeson in 2013. And also she has another one, which is "Roaming Home, Diaspora in VS Naples Fiction." And you can notice that she is interested in literature, specifically modern poetry. Concerning the conferences and symposiums and her academic participation, she has many actually in many different conferences and also in many Iraqi universities. She participated also in many training courses and development courses. She has 19 different published research works, and she has also many different research or suggested research again on different topics. We hope her our success. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm greatly honored here to be a member here of the symposium that is to be held right here in Al-Kufa University, College of Education. Actually, I very much do appreciate this invitation here among the wonderful professors and doctors and the great introduction that has been presented by them. So thanks a lot, and I do appreciate this. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Doctor. The title of the symposium supposed to be recent trends in literature and in language in general. And you can notice that language is, as its basic function, as a means of communication, whether it is in the field of literature or in the field of language. It is, in both cases, it can convey a meaning. It can produce what is demanded to be enhanced and what is demanded to be got by the reader, or it might be by the audience themselves. My title supposed to be, the paper I'm going to talk about here is Grammatic Emblems in Selected Poems by John Hollander. Actually, this is very much to show how far language become a means of communication, even though it is related to poetry. A new trend that has been held by most poets, whether they are modern or their own predecessors from different previous ages. The poet I'm going to tackle here is actually John Hollander, an American poet. He has involved in his own poetry such trend, such technique in presenting shape poetry, or it is a shape poem or a pattern poem, like most of the critics used to call it. It is a poem, if we are to talk about it as a shape poem or a pattern poem, it is a poem that is similar to any other poem. It tackles a topic, it has a theme, it has a message that is supposed to be conveyed to the reader, to the audience, yet it tackles also different themes or topics, ordinary things like time, like money, idea, love, death, war, different themes like the ordinary poem. But what is the new thing about it? The new thing that John Hollander himself has discussed right here or manipulated into his own poetry was in which the subject matter is similar exactly to the printed format of the poem. Actually, the text is as similar as the content itself in a very printed or formatted way. Such poems are likewise termed shape verse. They are not, of course, as we have mentioned, they are not very new. It has been tackled by different poets. Actually, it has a long conventions of such a tradition to be used, ranges from the Alexandrian Greek poets to Lewis Carroll and beyond. John Hollander has used them, and actually he employed them, as far as he is an American poet, he employed them in his own poetry in the same tradition or in the same convention of actually the English poet George Herbert, the 17th century English poet. Graphic or grammatic poems are also to some degree should have its private self-reflection. Of course, the poem has a shape, it has a content, and at the same time it is supposed to have this self-reflection, to reflect the topic, the meaning, the attitude throughout the poem itself. So in this case, we are going to have this matching between the shape and the content at the same time. They actually show a wide range or area of themes and undermine the authority of the writing of the author himself. Hollander, in uniting both content and form, he's going to support actually creating an authoritative outcome in the field of poetry right here. And as far as he is going to be considered as American poetry in specific. The poet, John Hollander, he says that a good poem, which is a very important, saying that has been mentioned by him, a good poem satisfies the ear, it brings entertainment to the ear, it creates a story in the mind of the poet, or a picture that grabs actually you, informs you, and at the same time entertains you. There is this story, there is this image that is going to be held in the mind of the reader, and then he is going to enjoy, to entertain, and to be informed at the same time, to have this structure, this information that is to be given. John Hollander actually presented this shape poetry or graphematic emblems in his own poetry by a volume or a collection of verse under the title Types of Shape, and they are to be published the year 1969, where he presents almost poems with a design, with a shape, and a decoration that narrates the subject of the poem itself, its theme, its content, and actually it shows the stories given throughout the poem. More than almost 25 poems have been presented throughout this volume, this collection, and all of them shows the skill, the mastery of language that Hollander himself had actually grasped right here. The most important poem he himself had presented is Swan and Shadow. Actually, Swan and Shadow, one of the most important and very beautiful poems that have been presented by the poet. And it has this, a critical dispute that has been grown around it. Actually, if we are to start right from the title, the poem is to indicate that it talks about a swan and shadow. All of us know what is meant by the swan, this beautiful creature, this white creature, and it is to be approximate, totally with the shadow. There is here a sense of antithetical poem or meaning, to have what? To have happiness and at the same time sadness. Swan, white, beautiful, lovely, and at the same, it creates, whenever you see a swan, you are going to have this feeling of happiness, whiteness, beauty, right inside the mind of the poet. And at the same time, there is the shadow that comes in relation to the swan at the same time. So white and dark, two antithetical meaning, two dichotomy that is to be presented within the beautiful white swan. Hollander says, of course, the poem itself shows the skillful use of the language, the mastery of language, and the skill of the poet himself. You can see that the poem could be read from different parts. Either you can read it right from the head, saying, "A dusk above the water hang loud files," or you read it from the end, the reflection of the head itself, which is what? "Sang if a swan shut in dark has a past place of a husk pale," and so on. Or it might be read from the wings of the swan. "A pale single will appear before its shadow fades." Or from the other, actually wing, the reflection of the wing. So there is this skill, which is of course not easy. It is not that something easy to handle the language in this way and in such perfection, actually. So he is trying to say that a pale single will appear soon before its shadow fades. He is after conveying the idea how something very small, aside from beauty and what lays behind the beauty, there is what? This idea of how something very small can lead to an even bigger discovery. A right or an appearance of a shadow is going to lead us to a bigger thing that might happen or might be seen. Only if you do what? If you pay clear attention. There is a shadow. Once you look on it, you are going to feel with this meditation, with this attention that is to be paid, how far there is something bigger that lays behind it. Or if it is to be read from "know upon us as the very edges of where we take shape in the dark ears," here to the end of the line, here he is going to say that there is a deeper meaning that is to be presented, which is what? He is crystallizing a picture of change. Possibly a change is going to happen. And this idea of change supposed to happen from good to bad, from a swan to a shadow, from what is white into what is dark. So there is this sense of change that might happen in the poem. Of course, the form of the poem is a story conveying the idea of how things change to probably younger crowd right here. Thus, the theme is change, and at the same time, it is the hidden secrets. What is done in the shadow is hidden, unseen, dark. It is a secret, and secrets are not supposed to be sometimes legal. Sometimes they are or might be illegal. So what is behind the story of the poem is that if something is beautiful, doesn't mean it is good. So Hollander, in this case, is to give us this skillful attitude of presenting his own theme through the shape as well. You see, sometimes you need not to continue the poem, just to look at its shape, and you are going to know the consequence of the meaning that is to be presented, and so far as the shape itself is to be presented. Another poem that he has presented is a graven image. This poem is under the title A Graven Image. It deals with the picture of a star. As you know, there is this shape of a star, and it shows the idea that is outstanding and shines. The star itself is very beautiful. It is very outstanding, and it shines from afar, from a very far distance, once you can look at it. So there is this attitude or this idea that there are things that are glitters, gives us hope, gives us guide, and gives us the attitude to be given in such a beautiful and outstanding image. So you can see that it is not easy to start with just a letter and to end with the same letter. He starts with a bit of an image, and he ends also the other part, the reflection of the poem, a known love operation. So this is just to show how he measures things, how he chooses the words very perfectly and very precisely so that it can handle the meaning. It is not only the word, it is not only the meaning behind the word, but also the rhyme and the rhythm of the word as well. To choose a word according to its shape, to its rhyme, to its measure, to its rhythm, this is quite, of course, skillful and quite significant. Why? This is only because for Hollander, the poetry is a very interesting subject. It is something, as we have mentioned in the epigraph at the beginning, it is something very interesting. It has this magnificent aspect that is of being read aloud. Once you read it aloud, you are going to enjoy it. It brings enjoyment to the ear, as well as to see it. It brings enjoyment to the eye as well. And this is the aim behind this graphemic or graphematic emblems, to see and to hear and to have enjoyment from these both activities actually. The interest he got in this regard is taken from his interest in translations from the Yiddish language using pictorial alphabets. Earlier in the past, they used to have such pictorial, letters of images, of shapes, in order to convey their own idea. It has been taken also from geometry. Geometry led him to be a poet. The poet himself, Hollander, whenever he goes to a certain place, he used to have papers to whatever he likes, he is going to draw it. And sometimes if he finds nothing, he is going to use the handkerchiefs and to draw things about them and to keep them. Later on, they are going to be a project of a poem, which is also significant. So geometry makes him manipulate these geometrical shapes into what? Into literature. Once more, this is not easy. This is difficult. He was also well talented in drawing. Not any poet could use his skill in this as we have mentioned, not only in the choice of the words, but also the meaning of those words that is going to be presented. There should be balance and similarity between the two parts of the heart. You can see that the heart consists of two parts, the first part and the second part, and there is a line that divides the heart into two parts. How far there is a balance between these two parts. So, in this case, the lines should be in the same length and at the same time the same thickness so that they can be drawn in a very good way. When writing a geometrical poem, the poet should create a kind of balance and harmony between the parts and the whole. He writes each part alone and then how far they are related to the whole heart and the whole drawing right here. It means the number of words and the length of these lines have got an outstanding importance. Each one of them is to be similar to its reflection in the other part. The poet should follow the same procedure as he is drawing geometrical shapes. In this poem, Hollander intentionally shows his own idea that the heart suffering in the form of measurement and figure. The suffering is going to be presented not only in the shape, but the measurement, the way he measures things and the figure itself, a heart. Once you look at a heart, you feel either sadness or happiness. Now he is talking about sadness. The rhyme as well, the meter as well. It makes the idea or the matter much more complicated. That's why he is to choose them. As we have mentioned, to choose the words as well. He has chosen in the first part, for example, the word deep. In the second part, or the surface in the first part, deep in the second part, to show this reflection. There is the words of ceased, which means the stopped, which means the depression or the pain. Unhanging, light, and shadow. All these words are to be mentioned according to the part in relation to the whole poem that is going to be presented. Another example is the poem that he presented is Old Mazda Lamp, which is also a very significant and beautiful poem. It is similar in its shape to the round, the sphere, and the cylinder. 5 minutes, sorry. He uses in making this poem a geometrical figure that deploys them to make a lamp. And once we are to talk about the lamp, comes to our own idea, the attitude of what? On and off, isn't it? Since we are talking about a lamp. So he starts right from the beginning of the poem by saying on or off. And this is the significance of the idea of using a lamp. It is not the shape, but the poem, the words. And he is talking, or he was talking in this poem about the mind of man. Either he is similar to a dark room in which the lamp is off, or it is similar to a lit, enlightened room in which the lamp is on. So how far this is going to be enhanced or to be presented throughout education, throughout knowledge, throughout, this attention to be primary, this is the attention that has been primarily introduced or presented in the poem. I'm going to pass it quickly to another shape that has been presented by Hollander. It is in a form of a kitty. And most of us know this shape. It is about actually a black domestic short haircut, but it talks about itself, about its own experience in relation to man. Maybe he is referring to a woman or this domestic creature that knows everything about the members whom are supposed to be in the poem. So he says, "Oh, I," and then at the end he says, "to end our tale." The tale might refers to the tail of the cat, or it might refers to the story itself. So the words are very much significantly presented. Similar to this, we have this same poem that talks also about a cat, but it is in relation with a bug. You have seen that the whole cat has been presented and the bug is only 3 letters word that reflects also the attitude which is of different significance. Someone who is a quite magnificent giant and other who is very small. It might refers to man and woman, and it might refers to policy and different other attitudes. The last, and quickly I'm going to pass on it, is the shape of a grail or a cup, which is very much to have different meaning, many significant meaning. It might be religious, and all of us know the Holy Grail, from which Jesus Christ himself has drunk his own last drink before he is to die. And this is actually a religious meaning, or it might carry different other meanings. It might refer to the cup from which the poet himself is to drink, so that he is going to be inspired and he is going to write poetry in this case. Or it might refer to another kind of a truth, the truth that any poet might tackle in his own poem. It's not only the shape, it might be different shapes right here. It might be a cylinder, which is the base of the cup, and it might be a crown, the crown that is going to be put on the head of a king. So it might refer to the idea that here he is going to talk about kings, or he is going to talk about gods in this case, and how far they are pretentious to pretend and to have this prestigious way of life. Yet the very important thing is that he starts the poem with I have given up certain, and he ends it with you, as if he is going to talk in another different field or theme about his own love, about his own women, about their own story, he and her, and he starts with himself and he ends actually with her. So the poem that might be written inspired by this grail or this cup of inspiration might talk about the truth, which is what the love between him and his own actually women. So to come up with a conclusion is that John Hollander is using these shapes in order to convey an idea. As I told you, the form is not new, but it has been tackled from different and long heritage of conventions, but it actually enhances the meaning. To look, to hear, to be inspired, to have the rhyme, to have the rhythm, all of them cooperate together so that they can convey one single idea the poet himself tries to convey. Okay, thanks a lot, and I hope that you have enjoyed the lecture. Thanks, Doctor, and I'm sorry if I passed my time.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Sahar Abdelamir, for this interesting presentation. Yes, indeed, language is the most fundamental means of communication. Language as a whole and poetry in particular is multifunctional. It is like a Swiss knife. Okay, Swiss knife. So it is multifunctional. That is, we can open a bottle. We can maybe use for killing, for doing so many things in life. This is poetry. The other nature of poetry, or the other facet of poetry, is the iconic nature. That is the correspondence between form and function. And this is. This spreads all the way through in language and in poetry in particular. The poetry in general and Hollander's poetry seems to be emotional, realistic, aesthetic, and at the end it is really joyful. But there is still discrepancy between the shapes. There is a discrepancy between black and white. There is the discrepancy between the creature itself in reality and its shadow on the water, for example. The case of a swan. Yes, small steps may result in big leaps. And this is very important, which is again pinpointed by the poet. The other important point, which is underlined in the presentation, is that poetry is sometimes deceptive, and all that glitters is not, of course, gold. The last point, which was highlighted in the presentation, was the geometrical nature of literature or poetry. the poetry or the poems by Hollander seem to be not static really, but they are accomplished to stimulate our senses, our emotional abilities, our mental conceptualizations and imagination. And this is the most important thing. Thank you very, very much, Doctor. It was really an interesting lecture. Now, the window time is given to the floor for questions.